Hey, Star Wars fans, welcome to the Star Wars Doctrine show. I'm Cody Dastrup, and with me, as always, Logan Schultz.
Hola.
We just, we're about a month since Rise of Skywalker came out, a little bit over, but we wanted to sit down and kind of reflect on the Rise of Skywalker after a month.
Right, and I think that's a really interesting thing to get to do is, so we've seen the Rise of Skywalker 4 or 5 times each, right? So we've seen it a few times and have gotten the chance. We have the visual dictionary just to digest it, to even talk with some of you guys, talk a little bit, and really think about what we've seen. And it's been an interesting month, and there's a lot of things I think that have changed for me, like my initial feelings from like the first viewing to now a month later with my most recent viewing.
Definitely. Each time I've gone back, there's obviously you're always going to pick out different things.
Right.
But it was interesting, too, like certain things that I didn't like the first time around, I started to like, and then certain things I might have liked or wasn't bothered by started to bother me. It's just funny how everything always changes over time. And
no, yeah, I totally agree. I think, what was your favorite viewing out of the times you've seen it? If you could say, like, number one.
Probably second. Excuse me. And I think the reason was because when I watched it the very first time, the number one thing that bothered me was, like, the pace of it. Just because I was like, man, it felt like we were just going so fast. And there's a lot that JJ had to fit into one movie.
Right.
But the second time going back, it didn't feel that way because I already knew some of the things that were coming and I could digest it more. So that was probably my favorite viewing. What about you?
I was going to say the exact same thing. It's definitely number 2 for me. And I think, like what you said, is, like you had the pacing down of the movie. You knew what was going to happen. It still is a rushed film, but like knowing what's going to happen, you can focus on the smaller details, which is always a fun part about a Star Wars film.
Because there is a lot in there.
Yes.
Sometimes you just, like the first viewing, I didn't notice near as much just because, like you said, it feels fast. But there is a lot in there.
Agreed. But I think, so there's obviously going to be spoilers in this if for some reason you haven't seen The Rise of Skywalker.
Right.
But one of the things I felt was kind of super fun the first showing, but maybe not as much in subsequent showings, is I guess some of the reveals.
Yeah.
But that's just how things are gonna be, right? Darth Vader being Luke's father.
Not as cool.
The second time. Chewie dying.
Mm-hmm.
I remember when he saw that, like we were like, oh my gosh, they just killed Chewie. And Rey killed Chewie. Like I hate Rey forever. But then the second time, it's like, it's not a big deal. You're not like as hyped up. There's less emotion there.
Well, I noticed that second time, too, that there actually was 2 ships.
Yeah.
The first time I didn't.
I didn't catch it at all.
That was kind of smart.
And that was kind of a fun detail that you can catch on subsequent viewings.
Right. Which you might not have noticed the first time. Well, I didn't notice the first time.
I definitely didn't notice the first time. And then like Hux being the spy.
Yeah.
It's fun still, but like it's definitely like less emotion or less like surprise. And that's, I think, something that's always kind of sad about watching movies multiple times is like all those big reveals just don't have the lasting impact.
Yeah, I agree with that. Speaking of Hux, it was interesting too. Like I thought, like once they revealed him as a spy, I was like, man, this guy's gonna go with him. He's gonna go join the Resistance.
Yeah,
and he doesn't, and just gets freaking wrecked.
I know,
which was funny.
Maybe he's gonna help out. No, he's not.
And I kind of wish he would have. Like, I don't know. Like, I get, like, his motive was cool because it was like, I don't care who wins. I just want Kylo Ren to lose. Like, I don't really care about the Resistance.
Yeah.
So I guess that makes sense, but Pride's just like, I ain't playing with this dude. Just shoots him point blank.
Seriously, that was kind of crazy, I thought.
Yeah, not what I expected for Hux's arc.
I did like what you said, though. Like, we did get to see Hux, always hated Kylo Ren from the get-go.
Right.
And that didn't ever change.
Yeah.
So that was fun.
Made sense.
But I kind of wish they would have done more with him. But, honestly, it was, I think, a fair enough arc.
And it gave Pride, it gave General Pride a, what am I trying to say?
Like, added to his personality.
Yeah.
Because we didn't get as much with him, so we got to know right away. He's like, takes no craps.
Exactly. Yeah. He was there to serve, and really Palpatine, honestly. But, but yeah, no, he was total bad A, and that was a good way to solidify it. So Richard E. Grant's character, he just did awesome with that. I thought it was incredible.
Yeah, Richard E. Grant. Thank you for joining Star Wars.
One of
awesome.
the better performances in that movie. Very convincing.
Yeah, and I think overall, one of the things to me that stood out in this film was the acting and the characters.
Yeah.
All I think were much better than in other films. There was some good acting in all the films, I do think, but the performances overall from the entire cast was good. This was the first film that I really enjoyed Rey's character.
Yeah.
The first one I was like, okay. Number 8 I was kind of like, I don't really like her, but number 7 I was like, wow, I actually do like her.
Or
Number 9, that was weird.
Yeah, no, I
7,
agree. Some of the best acting for sure, because yeah, Ray was incredible. Daisy Ridley and Adam Driver is just, he's incredible.
He's a talented actor in general.
Very talented, yes, and and the emotion that he's able to convey, like in the scene with
such
Han
minimalist
and everything.
performances.
He's just, yeah, he's great. I agree with that. It was definitely one of the better acted of the sequels.
What are some of your top things from Star Wars? Just favorite things that happened in Episode 9?
Well, okay, so talking about what my favorite viewing was, and I already made a video on what my favorite scene was, and that still hasn't changed. But going into the first viewing, when we saw Han,
right,
like I was thrown off to where I didn't enjoy it as much, like because I was like, wait, is this a Force ghost? Why would they make Han a Force ghost? So I was kind of bothered by it. But then at the end, you realize it's just his memory, and I thought that was a really cool way to do it. So going in the second time, I could enjoy the fact that they were making these parallels to how Han died, and like that was just one of the most beautiful scenes in my opinion. Outside of that though, because I already made a video there on that, I think the coolest fight was where the way that JJ really took advantage of Rey and Kylo's connection. Right. So that fight where Rey's on Kylo's ship and Kylo's down on Kijimi, and then they're like, as the camera spins, it's like crossing over to each person's like where they're at.
Yeah,
that was really, really visually pretty, honestly.
The camera work I thought was really impressive on that scene. Just like you were saying, we got to get Rey was in Kylo's scene, Kylo was in Rey's scene, Kylo was by himself, and how they interacted with their environment. Like the red beans or berries or whatever spilling onto the floor.
That was the coolest part. Well, to make you feel like what was like, I don't know, it would be hard to shoot a shot where they're standing in front of each other and the audience knows that they can't see each other's surroundings. But somehow he did it so well.
Yes,
so
I agree.
That was, yeah.
Because I definitely felt like that with like the Force dyad, like the first, or I guess the Force connection in Episode 8 in The Last Jedi. I was like having trouble being like, how much of the other person can they see?
Right.
What's really going on here? Mm-hmm. So that was an interesting way of like expanding on that idea and making it maybe even more clear.
Mm-hmm. So what about you? What were some of your favorites?
I really like the Han scene too. That just seemed so emotional to me. Yeah. And the tie-in with just all of everything, and Han being the guy who really got to bring back his son. That was really powerful to me. It was actually, mother and father got to bring their son back together.
It made Han feel like his death wasn't in vain a little bit.
Because it kind of felt like when Han died in Episode 7 that it seemed almost pointless. Yeah. Though I did expect Han to die, and I was honestly not overly upset because that's just kind of what I anticipated happened to Harrison Ford. But it did seem like, oh, cool, Han's dead, great.
He sacrificed himself and nothing came of it, right?
But I do think they built on it. In Episode 8, Snoke is telling Kylo he's like, sucks because he's like...
it's tearing you apart.
You killing your dad is the reason you lost to Rey because you're so emotionally distracted from what you just did that you knew it was wrong. So like that kind of... that act expounded on itself, and eventually it was the thing that redeemed him.
Yeah.
Which was cool, because I think Leia was telling Han, he's the only one who can reach their son.
Yeah, because, that was that whole thing. Luke's just a Jedi, but you're his dad, and, like, saying that's a more powerful connection, which is cool.
It's a cool family connection, I think. So that was really powerful to me. I liked the same fight as you. I loved Babu Frick.
Hey!
And I liked everyone being together.
Yeah.
That was something that had been lacking, and I felt really made me appreciate this trilogy more, was getting to see Poe, Finn, and Rey all together,
It was fun to see like a Rey and Poe's relationship at the beginning, kind of teasing each other. Like she's mad about the Falcon, and he's mad about BB-8 being broken. That was fun. Lots of good jokes, and
Finn being kind of like that middle guy.
Yeah, he's like
the
you guys are both nuts. Of the two. That's true. And Finn's character was a lot better in this as well. I
loved Finn in 9. I honestly hated him in 8 and hoped he died.
Jeez. Yeah, no, I hear you though. It was like just they kind of made him more like, I don't know, like a battle-hardened soldier now. Like before he was kind of goofy and kind of like, and the way they did his hair and his outfit, it was just a lot more like
he definitely grown up in that year.
It made sense that he was gonna help Poe be the general of the Resistance after Leia went. Like it worked.
Mm-hmm.
So
and their relationship, everything it was just a good movie for the characters, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So that was definitely like probably my favorite things.
All right, so I guess that leads us to what were some of your not so favorite
things. I definitely wish that the movie was longer.
Oh, sure.
Just because, there's always more you want to see.
Mm-hmm. To me, I'll just say that it felt like there was a lot of things to me that were so close to being freaking awesome that just barely fell short.
Mm-hmm.
Couple of like ideas that I'm like, yeah, that was a great idea. You just need to go a little farther with it. Like the number one for me is just Rey hearing everyone's voices.
Mm-hmm.
Like that was a cool setup from the beginning of the movie where she's reaching out like, be with me, and then at the end, be with me. But to me, it was like you came so close and you put their voices in it. The next step would have been like, let me see the Force ghosts, And I understand like maybe not every one of those characters were Force ghosts, so maybe their voices could have been in it, but at least like Obi-Wan or
that was something I was actually just thinking of was so that to me honestly the ending scene is the biggest letdown of the film.
Yeah.
And the be with me part, I think it was just a little drawn out to where she's like laying on the floor like that seemed really weird. Like I could die, but hey, be with me. Like that seemed kind of weird to me. But like you're saying is like it could have been really, really cool.
Yeah, and it wasn't bad.
It wasn't bad.
It could have been better.
It could have been a lot better. And I do think what you were saying is that at first when I was worried because I heard there was like 15 different Jedi who were talking to her, and I was like, none of y'all deserve to be Force ghosts. And I was like, okay, actually they aren't. And then I was like, that would have been really cool to kind of distinctualize because that was a big thing to George Lucas.
Some people who weren't Force ghosts and some who were.
Yeah, that some people learned and were powerful enough Jedi to come back all the way, and then some were only supposed to remain voices because that was the extent of their power.
Yeah,
and that would have been a cool like distinctualize like Luke's back, Anakin's back, Yoda's back, but maybe not like Illuminara because
right or Kanan
that I thought that was a cool part about Kanan's arc in general in Rebels.
So that for me is like one of the biggest things because I thought it was hard. There's the first time around, and since we watched it together, maybe you felt the same way. It was hard to pick out whose voices were whose because there's such short lines.
Yeah,
I didn't know people that just saying Luminar.
Rey.
I didn't know that was Luminara's voice
until the credits.
Yeah, like I picked up Ahsoka, I picked up Anakin, Mace,
Qui-Gon,
Obi-Wan, and Qui-Gon, and
both
Yoda.
Obi-Wans.
Yeah,
it's weird.
I didn't
cool.
pick up Luminara, and I didn't pick up Kanan or Ayla, and it was just like, if you could have either seen their faces or, I don't know. Anyways, it was a lot. And it was cool, but it would have been cooler to see. I've seen lots of cool fan art of where the ghosts are resting their hands on Rey's shoulders while she's battling the Emperor. And that would have been a cool visual from the audience perspective.
And then another big thing to me was just like, I have to make a video about this actually later. But just Anakin being in it, I don't know, was super cool because Anakin should have been in it. But I just now have lots of questions about bringing balance to the Force.
Yeah.
So I think we'll have to talk about that in a subsequent video.
That's a good point. Yeah. I still take issue, obviously, with the fact that he didn't appear with Luke and Leia at the end as well. So that's another Force Ghost miss, in my opinion. I know some people are like, no, and Chris Terrio was like, no, we wanted Leia and Luke. They're her masters. But I just think you had a missed opportunity to put Anakin with his two kids on screen.
At least somewhere,
so
even
cool.
if like
maybe not that scene, but at some point, yeah.
Yeah, it could have like replicated how the party on Agent Kloss with like the party on Endor.
Okay.
Where there could have been all the Jedi there, and then like maybe the final resting place we just got to see the twins together. Because those twins together was special, but I do kind of feel like the Tatooine scene was way less of what it should have been.
Yeah, and if Ben would have been there too. That would have been awesome.
Mm-hmm. That was obviously someone who's important to her.
Right,
and
exactly.
kind of restored her life. Other than that, like, he's a minor character.
Right? No, I think that too. And what would you say, like, if you were comparing Return of the Jedi's end scene and this end scene? Because, okay, for a long time, we thought Return of the Jedi's end scene was just going to be the end of the Skywalker saga. And we thought that was the end.
Mm-hmm.
So compare that in satisfaction to the end we have now to the Skywalker saga. Like, do you think that Return of the Jedi's ending was more satisfying, or do you think this ending was more satisfying?
I don't really think it's close. I think Return of the Jedi is way more satisfying.
I agree.
For, I guess, 2 to 3 big reasons. 2 is like, okay, so the first one is episode 6, you know, like, we won, we blew up the bad guy, we blew up the bad guy base, etc. So, like, that seemed very complete and, okay, handled that, you know.
Right.
We're done with the bad guy, and then that was really powerful. And then number 2 is we got all the heroes together to end it in a way that made sense. You know, everyone just came back from each of their individual missions, you know, and then everyone was together, really cool, and it ended with that, like, kind of emotion, getting to see also then the Force Ghosts all together, but all the heroes all together. And that's how it ended, was on the heroes.
Yeah.
Where in this one, it just seems like almost like an afterthought, like an epilogue we're kind of reading.
With the Tatooine scene?
With the Tatooine scene.
Yeah.
You know, Rey just turning on her lightsaber. Super cool. I'm glad there's a yellow lightsaber. Awesome.
Right.
I'm also glad that it's her staff.
Yeah.
I don't understand why she randomly flicks it on, but...
Yeah, just to show the,
just to show the audience. And I think her ending the scene by herself is a lot less impactful if she just gained this new family. Point. If the point of the movie is family and now she's by herself, that seems really weird.
Right. I don't think
even
she's
though
like
I wanted to be on Tatooine.
Right. I don't think she's excluding herself.
No.
But it was just like she was visiting. But yeah, I see what you're saying. Not surrounded by, like, you know, her friends and everything, like on Endor. And
I do think the music ending is slightly better in 6 versus 9. That
Yub
was like my 2-part 3.
Yeah. Yeah.
What about you? What's one ends better?
I think Return of the Jedi was a better ending, and I don't know if that's the part of me that just we grew up with that, thinking that. But yeah, just like, and it was cool to me that Rey like took on the Skywalker name, but it's just not the same as like Luke being there at the end. I don't know.
I think even Ben Solo being there would have been a lot more impactful.
Okay, so let's talk about that then, because I know that's one thing we both agree on, and I know a lot of people do, that
Hashtag Save Ben Solo's been trending for like a month.
Right. Yeah, and at the end of the day, like, they chose what they thought was the best decision, but you thought that it would have been more exciting and fun if Ben Solo would have lived. Yeah, and then maybe he could have gone back to Tatooine with Rey. That would have been cool.
Right. So I think some of the things we had talked about was number one with the Ben Solo death scene is that it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Right.
Yeah.
So Ben Solo gets, tossed off a cliff. That seems fair, honestly. Slight cheesy humor. But Ben Solo gets tossed off a cliff, come back, Rey's dead, and he's obviously extremely injured, but pours everything he's got into saving her.
Right.
And then one of the things we thought is, okay, he saved her. Now that would to me mean if he poured out all of his life force to bring someone back from the dead, he's dead. He's gone.
Like he would die right away.
Right. Because he just expounded all of his energy, right? Because it's giving what you have to someone else is how Rey explains it.
Right.
So transfer complete, no more Ben.
Yeah.
But then we had this scene where we got the Reylo confirmed, which I'm not a big, I don't care either way, really.
Yeah.
But like we get this scene where everyone's alive and happy, and then Ben Solo dies.
Right.
And that made his death to me seem so much stranger.
Yeah.
Where if he like healed her and then collapsed on her, it'd have been like, wow, he just gave everything and he's gone, unfortunately. But then to have like that weird sort of like, I think it's a full minute roughly on screen.
Really? Yeah, where they're...
I think someone timed out. It's about like 40 something seconds where they're alive together. And not that like 40 seconds is huge, but like it seemed odd.
Seemed long, yeah. Well, and then outside of that, I just thought that like for Vader dying, first of all, I didn't want him to die because I felt like it was a little bit of a Darth Vader rematch.
Oh my gosh, I had the exact same feeling, yeah.
Second off, I didn't think that... I thought that Vader dying was like kind of necessary for his redemption because it was like, okay, I died for my son,
right?
Kind of thing. And it was cool because it was like he knew that he was going to die doing it probably, and it was too late for him now and everything. And so that was cool. But Ben, like from an audience standpoint, like we had already seen him turn. We had already seen the impactful moment where he decided to be good now. So, like, it didn't feel as necessary for him to die to be redeemed.
Right.
Like,
it kind of cheapens his redemption being like, oh, if you do something bad, you have to die to like
Yeah.
make it right.
Right.
And that seems unfair with how much I feel like Ben really did try and come back. Now, him being accepted by maybe the rebellion or the resistance or whatever we're calling it this week is maybe different.
Yeah, and
But
I wouldn't
like, I do think
expect
he
him
was
to
redeemed by himself without having to fully
die.
give his life for Rey.
Yeah, and I don't think he needed to. I don't think he needed to go back to the Resistance and party
Mhm.
with them like
Agreed.
Rey did. It would have been cool if like Rey showed up to that party without him, and then maybe you see them together on Tatooine at the end or something. That way, we don't have questions like, why did the Resistance not like shoot him when he landed? You know what I'm saying? Like,
Right.
because they're not going to understand. They don't feel. Maybe Finn would have through the Force or something, but most of them aren't going to understand, especially without Leia there
Mm-hmm.
alive
To like vouch for him and explain what's going
Exactly.
on.
Yeah, so that needs time, but it wasn't necessary to kill him off. Like, there's not movies after this where we're gonna have to explain to the Resistance. Like, I don't know. Like, even if he had to stay in hiding his whole life and only Rey knows about him, I don't know. Anyways,
I totally agree, and that was just a big thing to me. Is it just seemed like it was too much like Vader, or it cheapened like what he had done that made it seem like he had to die. So honestly, him living, I feel like would have been. That was another thing we had talked about. It would have been really cool if like him trying to save Rey is if he recognized maybe he didn't have the strength to do it, but then like I don't know, Anakin came by. You know, Anakin was all
helped him
about
with
giving
it.
his life for the people he loved.
Right?
That was the entire reason he did what he did, right? So like if Anakin was able to help him like restore Rey,
Yeah.
that would have been super cool and maybe a good way to bring in Anakin without maybe having him stand with his kids or something like that. Would have been like
Yeah, that's true.
a cool moment because a lot of people
gives him strength.
yeah, and a lot of people liked the idea of Anakin having some connection with his grandson who's clearly obsessed with him.
Right.
So that would have been fun.
Yeah, and then like I've seen people talk about the fact that Rey got to see all these Force ghosts. They would have or hear all of them. It would have been nice if Ben got to hear some too, especially Anakin. Like you said, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm 50-50 on that. But I think I think the Rey versus Palpatine at the end with their two lightsabers crossed would have been way cooler if it was Rey holding one and Ben holding the other.
Mm-hmm.
That's just my thought because I thought that would have been.
Yeah.
If instead of just Rey being all the Jedi, they were all the Jedi. Or even if it's mostly Rey, but Ben's just there to help. Like, I don't care. But I think they should have both been there to defeat.
To be fair,
Palpatine.
Rey being all the Jedi doesn't seem any different than Palpatine being all the Sith.
No, yeah, I totally.
So,
yeah, I get
I feel
you.
like Ben and Rey would have made sense as being like, the Jedi's not one person. The Jedi is like that ideology of serving the light,
Right.
usually.
Yeah. No, yeah. That's true. I don't know. There's lots of things to talk about in this movie, but those are. Do you think we've covered most of the things that you?
I guess got to give it a rating out of 10. What would you? A rating out of 10 and your overall just kind of feeling about the Rise of Skywalker. Like if you were to sum up like a sentence or a word or something.
Okay, and then first, let me ask you this too, though.
Oh no.
What, where would you rank it among the sequels?
I think it's my favorite sequel.
Okay.
I had a lot of nostalgia with a little bit of new. So I think that way it's fun, but feels familiar,
Mm-hmm.
but not too familiar.
Yeah. No, I agree. It definitely had a lot of nostalgia in it. Because I'm struggling now with, I really liked Episode 7.
Mm-hmm.
Almost everything about Episode 7 I like, except for, maybe Starkiller Base. So, between this one and 7, for me, is where I'd rank it. Those are my two favorite of the sequels. I don't know which one I'd choose. I'm not.
Fair.
It's going to take time. But I do feel like Episode 9, one thing it did do, in my opinion, is I think it made the other two a little better.
Agreed.
It was
yeah.
a good enough. JJ did enough stuff to tie the other ones in a little bit that it made them feel better than they were just upon viewing them alone.
Mm-hmm. I do think that it did end the trilogy, the sequel trilogy, in a meaningful, impactful way.
Correct. Yeah,
that,
yeah, exactly.
That felt fair, and it felt like it had kind of tied in the two different tones between 7 and 8, because there were drastically different tones in the two films.
Yeah. Out of 10, I'm going to give it somewhere between a 7 and an 8. Well, maybe an 8. Yeah, let's say 8 out of 10.
Okay. I'll give it a 7.
7?
That's fair. And then your little sum up of just word or a sentence on feeling of the Rise of Skywalker.
That's hard. I think it was, to me, it was one of the best that could have been done with what JJ had to work with. That's what I kind of look at it as.
Fair enough.
But looking back, like, I just wish. I don't know.
We should really have one script writer from the beginning, basically, some moral of the story.
That's where I'm going with it. Is I think like looking at like 7 and 9 communicate well together, in my opinion, for the most part, and then 8 and it's just because there's a different writer and a different. Like, I wish they would have sat down, figured out the storyline, where it starts, where it ends with the trilogy, and I'm sure they had a rough idea. But
right.
You definitely, it's fairly obvious that they were kind of figuring out some stuff as they went. And sometimes it worked out cool and sometimes it didn't. But yeah, that's what I'm saying. I do think JJ did do a good job with what he had to work with.
That's fair. I think I would say like it's a fun, fast-paced film that gives a mostly like satisfying conclusion.
Yeah.
But to me, it's just like it's a good movie that there's just like we said, there's a few things that would have made it a really great movie. But
exactly, like it came so close on some things. Oh, that's the other one too. And I just real quick before we
kidding, we're not ending.
Cap it off. How do you think that? Like, did you like?
You're there to work on
I don't
it, Mike.
know how to say. Yeah, just trying to get this Dr. Pepper in me, but I think that Palpatine's like one of my disappointments with it was, and I expected it to kind of go this way, but was how they treated Palpatine's return. Like, I didn't love that.
Right. It definitely seemed a little more rushed than.
Yeah, it was like, hey, Palpatine, there's rumors that he's back, and okay, now there's a mole in the First Order who confirmed he's back, and it just wasn't like as impactful as it could have been.
Right.
And then I'm fine, I guess, with like him quoting the tragedy of Darth Plagueis as the reason he still was able to come back to life. But it would have been nice to get a little more.
It would have been nice to know that his followers found his dead body and restored it to life and hooked him up to that machine. Like, that really couldn't have been that complicated to say.
Right. Or, yeah, just like whatever. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And to, like, just to know, like, a little bit more about how long he maybe had that planned and, like, I don't know. It just, that was a little rushed. And it was kind of like, hey, we only have 2.5 hours, so we're just going to tell you this real quick so we can get on with the movie. It's kind of how it felt.
That's fair. That's fair.
And then for him, I don't know. I didn't like the way he died either. Like, now I'm just thinking of all these different things.
Palpatine was so cool, but honestly, there was just so many things that I felt limited his interactions or what happened around him. You know, like, we don't know how he really came back. I mean, we kind of do because the expanded stuff, but like, we don't know how he came back in the film. We also don't know how he got like kind of so powerful. We don't know how he died. And how is him getting his face melted off with lightsabers any different than getting blown up?
Right.
That doesn't really seem more like...
Like, is he officially gone now? Like, it is confusing.
So,
but
maybe we'll get a little more with the potential Rebels. The Rebels sequel that's set, apparently, about a couple years after
It'd be fun.
The Return of the Jedi. So we'll see how that goes and if that actually happens.
Yeah. No, there's definitely, and there will be stuff. We'll get answers, and like I said, we're only a month out, and there will be more answers, and there already has been just in the last couple weeks and stuff. So there will
Chris
be more.
Terrio just can't stop talking about it.
Right. Yeah. Well, anyways.
But that's what we think about the Rise of Skywalker a month later. Let us know what you think, or let us know what you think in 2 months or 3 months or after you own the Blu-ray. But thanks for listening to Star Wars Doctrine. May the Force be with you.